There is a particular kind of quiet that comes after a long war.
Not the quiet of defeat, not the quiet of surrender.
The quiet of someone who has already won and is simply waiting for the other side to understand it.
I have been sitting in this room for 11 minutes. They will be here in 4.
And when that door opens, everything they said to me, everything they believed about me, every word they used as a weapon,
it will all come back to them, quietly, completely, and without mercy.
Stay with me, because this story does not begin in this boardroom. It begins in the rain.
Before I tell you what happens when that door opens, if you have ever been told you were not enough and you kept going anyway, this channel was built for you. Subscribe.
And if you carry a story of quiet strength the world has not heard yet, write to us. The address is on the screen. Your privacy is absolute. Your story matters.
I grew up in a house where we did not have much, but we had something that not every house has. We had precision. My mother could make $1 last a week and not call it poverty. She called it discipline. She called it clarity.
Money is noise. What you build with it is the only signal that counts.
My father built the Obiageli Foundation from nothing, a community organization in our neighborhood that slowly, over 30 years, became something else entirely.
Something that reached beyond our street, beyond our city, beyond anything I was old enough to understand while he was alive. He died when I was 22. He left me the foundation, all of it. I was not ready, but he believed I would grow into it, and I did. I kept my name quiet. I kept my work quiet. I kept myself quiet. The tree that bends in the storm does not break. When the storm is over, it is the only one still standing. I am a very good tree. Elias Hargrove came into my life the way beautiful, complicated things sometimes do, completely. He was everything the world had decided looked like success. The last name, the posture, the way he entered rooms as if the room had been waiting for him. I loved him. I want to say that clearly, because what comes next is not a story about a man I never loved. It is a story about a man who was raised to believe that love had a price tag, and that mine was not high enough. We met at a fundraising gala for a literacy foundation. He did not know I was the one who had written the check that funded the entire event. He thought I was one of the volunteers. I let him think that. Not to deceive him, but because I wanted, just once, to be loved for the woman I was, and not for the name I carried. For a while, it worked, and then I met his mother. The first time I met Mrs. Hargrove, I arrived in a car that was not impressive. I wore a dress that was clean but simple. I did not wear the bracelet. I wanted to see who these people were when they believed they had nothing to fear from me. What I saw told me everything I needed to know.
Elias didn't mention you were from such a modest background.
She said it the way people say things they intend to wound without leaving a mark. He must have forgotten to mention it.
Where exactly does your family come from, dear?
A small community. Nothing you would know. She smiled, the kind of smile that has already decided. I smiled back, the kind of smile that already knows.
We sat through dinner in a careful truce, but I felt it, the machinery of her judgment, running quietly behind her eyes, sorting, filing, dismissing. By dessert, she had decided what I was. She was not entirely wrong about the dress. She was entirely wrong about everything else.
4 months into the engagement, Mrs. Hargrove requested a meeting. She called it a formality. It was not a formality.
We need to protect what this family has built. Surely you understand that.
Of course.
This agreement simply ensures that in the event of any incompatibility, the Hargrove estate remains protected.
I looked at the document. I looked at Elias, who was still looking at the floor.
I looked at Mrs. Hargrove, smiling with all the confidence of someone who had never been surprised in her life. I did not sign. I said, I will have my legal team review it.
Your legal team?
Yes, is that a problem? It was the first time I heard a silence from her that was not comfortable. I filed it away. I had a folder for things like that. The pressure did not come all at once. That is how people like Mrs. Hargrove operate. They are not dramatic. They are methodical. It was small things at first. Dinners where she redirected every conversation away from me. Comments delivered as concern.
I'm only saying this because I want the best for Elias. Family events where my presence was tolerated and my absence would not have been noticed.
Then it became larger things. She started suggesting that Elias reconsider the timeline of the wedding. She started inviting a woman, a family friend's daughter, educated in Europe, from a known family, to every gathering. She started asking Elias, in my presence, what exactly he knew about my background.
Mother.
I am simply asking what any responsible parent would ask. What does this girl's family actually have? Love is beautiful, Elias, but this is not a fairy tale.
I sat across from her and I said nothing. Not because I had nothing to say. Because I had already decided that the only place I would speak was the place where it would count. The night they threw me out, it was raining. I remember that detail precisely, because there is something about rain that strips things to their truth. No decoration, no softening, just what is.
Take your cheap ring and leave this house. A girl like you will never be good enough for my son.
I looked at Elias, he looked at the floor. That was his answer. I bent down, I picked up my bags, not because I had to, but because I chose to. Because dignity is not something someone else can take from you. You can only put it down yourself. I stood up. I looked at Mrs. Hargrove directly. You will remember this day forever. I walked to the car. I did not look back, not because I was not hurt, but because I already knew something she did not. The folder on my desk at home, the one with the gold initials, contained a document that was about to become very relevant to the Hargrove family. I just needed to wait. What Mrs. Hargrove did next, she did quietly. She was good at quiet. She began to tell people, the right people, in the right circles, that I had fabricated my background, that my connections were invented. That Elias had narrowly escaped a calculated woman looking for an elevation she had not earned. She did not say it loudly. She said it the way poison is administered. Small doses, over time, in places where the antidote never quite reaches. I heard it come back to me through people who thought they were helping. A colleague who pulled me aside at a reception. A friend who hesitated when I called. An invitation that never arrived. I sat with it.
I let myself feel the weight of it, because pretending it did not hurt would have been a lie, and I have no use for lies. It hurt. But hurt and broken are not the same thing, and I have never, in my entire life, been broken. 3 weeks after that night in the rain, I received a call from my foundation's senior counsel. The Hargrove Group had submitted a formal application for emergency capital assistance. Their primary construction venture had collapsed. A major investor had withdrawn. They were, quietly, carefully, behind closed boardroom doors, in serious financial trouble. They needed a capital injection from a large philanthropic foundation with a business stabilization arm. They had applied to the Obiagali Foundation, my foundation. I sat with that information for a very long time. I thought about my father and what he would have said. He would not have said, "Destroy them." He would have said, "Be exactly who I raised you to be." I picked up the phone, I told my counsel to schedule the meeting, and then I told her what I would be wearing. The morning of the meeting, I woke up before my alarm. I made coffee the way my mother always made it, strong, slow, without rushing. I dressed deliberately, the suit I had been saving for this specific occasion, the bracelet my father gave me the day he told me I would run the foundation one day. I had not believed him then. I believe him now. I wrote the note on my stationery. I placed it inside the folder. Not as cruelty, as closure, as the exact, precise truth of what this day was. Then I drove to the building. I took the elevator to the executive floor. I walked to the boardroom. I sat down at the head of the table. I opened the folder, and I waited. The door opened at 11 o'clock exactly. Mr. Hargrove entered first. He was looking at his phone. Then Elias, and then Mrs. Hargrove. I watched the recognition move across her face like weather. First, confusion, then disbelief, then the specific, terrible clarity of someone who has finally understood something irreversible. I did not stand up, I did not smile, I simply said in the same quiet voice I have always had, "Please sit down. We have a lot to discuss." Nobody moved for a long moment. Then Mr. Hargrove, who I would later understand was a man of more honor than his family had shown, sat down. Elias sat down. Mrs. Hargrove sat down last. I slid the folder across the table and opened it. The foundation documents, the capital structure, the terms of the assistance program, and on top, face up, my handwritten note. Mrs. Hargrove's eyes went to it immediately. I watched her read it. I watched her understand it. What people expect in moments like this is fury, or triumph, or the kind of revenge that mirrors the original wound. I am not built for any of those things. I am built for clarity. The Hargrove Group's application was reviewed on its merits. The Foundation's board approved a partial capital assistance package, contingent on restructuring and full financial transparency over 24 months. The terms are in the folder. Mr. Hargrove looked up.
"Miss Obiagali, I owe you an apology. A real one, not on behalf of the application. Personally.
I know.
I was in that house on many of those evenings. I was quiet when I should not have been."
I know that too. Mrs. Hargrove had not spoken since she read the note. When she finally did, her voice was something I had never heard from her before. It was small.
I was wrong about you.
You were wrong about a lot of things, but the Foundation's decision was not made because of any of them. We help businesses that deserve to survive. The Hargrove Group's employees deserve their jobs. That is the only reason this assistance was approved.
She looked at me for a long moment. Then she nodded, just once. Elias had still not spoken. When everyone else had left the room, he remained. I waited.
Amita.
You don't need to explain yourself to me, Elias. I understood who you were that night in the rain. You showed me clearly. And I have already decided that showing me clearly was in the end the kindest thing you ever did for me. He left. I sat alone in the boardroom for a few minutes. I looked at the folder. I thought of my father. And I let myself feel, fully, privately, completely, the weight of what this day had been. Then I closed the folder, and I went back to work. I have thought a great deal about power since that day. Not the kind that announces itself, not the kind that needs a witness. The kind that is simply there, steady, rooted, patient, doing its work whether or not anyone is watching. My father built this foundation because he believed that the purpose of accumulation is distribution, that what you gather is only meaningful in the giving of it. Mrs. Hargrove was not wrong that I came from somewhere quiet. She was only wrong about what quiet means. Quiet is not smallness. Quiet is the sound of roots growing, and roots, as it turns out, can hold a great deal of weight. I still wear the thin gold bracelet. I wore it the day they threw my suitcase into the rain. I wore it the day I sat at the head of the table. I will wear it tomorrow. Not because it is expensive, it is not particularly expensive, but because my father gave it to me on the day he told me who I was. And I have never, not once, needed anyone else to confirm it. If you watched this story until the end, I believe you already know something about quiet strength. Maybe you have carried a version of this. Maybe the rain has fallen on you too. Maybe you are still standing in it. And maybe, somewhere inside you, you know something the people around you do not yet understand. You are not required to announce it. You are only required to keep going. If you have lived a story of quiet power, of being underestimated, overlooked, or told you were not enough, and you are ready for it to be told with the dignity it deserves, write to us. Your privacy is absolute. Your name will never be used without your explicit permission. What you share with us is sacred, and it will be treated that way. And if this story reached something true in you, leave a comment telling us where in the world you are watching from. We love knowing how far these stories travel. This is Vellum of Life. Until the next chapter.